Welcome to the True Life Balance Podcast. My name is Brad Lancaster.
And my name is Tiffany Lancaster. And this is a podcast about relationships and deep connection.
And this is a podcast about health and fitness.
And this is a podcast about consciousness and purpose.
And this is a podcast about business, sales, marketing, entrepreneurship. In other words, this is a podcast about everything that we care about. So come along for the ride and hope you enjoy. Well, welcome to another episode of the True Life Balance Podcast. We are so excited. Tiff and I are excited to introduce Michael and Kia Burns. Met them from how I meet a lot of people on social media. Started following Mike, and I think it was you really started popping up on my feed during COVID, and I don't know how that is, but you guys run a real estate company, a mortgage company. You flip houses, you own apartment buildings. I know of one in Texas, and I don't know where else you own real estate. And you guys just inspire me with your authenticity, your grit. Like you just impress the hell out of me. And so stoked to have you guys and have like a real conversation. Before we start talking, I want to let everybody know like this is unfiltered. Mike is like from everything he is one of the most real dudes I see on Facebook. He doesn't pull any punches, and this will be a no pull punches podcast. It's an hour long, and so I'm excited to buckle up. So thank you guys for being here.
Well, right on, man. Quite the intro. I appreciate that, and yeah, dude. So
well,
down to have the conversation, and appreciate all the kind words though, and of every, I'm real big on my core values and what's important to me, and transparency is one of them, and leading by example is another one. So to see others pick up on that means a lot. So thank you.
I think that's what attracted us to you guys in the beginning, because first of all, you guys are a couple flipping houses and in real estate, which is also what we do. But the other thing was like the authenticity of just being who you are. I'm sure we'll get into more of your guys' story and our story too, but you guys aren't afraid to just be who you are, and that's what's always been so. It's what attracted us to you guys.
That's awesome. It's definitely not for everybody.
Yeah, no.
But, like I've kind of planted my flag through the whole COVID thing. Obviously, that's where we linked up, and I've been pretty outspoken on the whole deal, but. I've just realized you're never going to please everyone. So I'd rather have that 35-40% of people who really vibe with us and what we're doing. And, like if you don't like it, like fuck them, like,
right.
That's what we're doing, bringing value. And I think if more people would be true to that instead of riding the fence and trying to please everybody, which is never going to happen. It doesn't matter who you are. You're never going to please everyone. So why not just be true and authentic and who you are, and it's not for everybody, and that's okay, but you can't be who you are when you're sitting there trying to please everyone. And if you're a different person when you're hanging out with this group of people, but then you're with someone else and you act like a different person, like you're not being transparent, that's not authentic, and you're just full of shit, and there's really
no integrity there.
Yeah, there's zero integrity, and I just like, you're not going to build meaningful relationships through that. So that's kind of my lens on how I look at that.
And so you're young, you're 34 years old. This is an incredibly emotionally mature standpoint to have. Like, it's taking me years and years and years to get to the point where I understand that. And I get that. I'm 50 years old, and I'm like at the point where I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely it. Tell me how you guys, like, first of all, where you came from, how you got into real estate, and where this mindset comes from. And I know those are 3 questions all in one.
You want to go first?
Sure. I'm born and raised in Utah. I grew up in Murray. We actually met on Match.com.
Sweet.
It was embarrassing for the longest time. I used to hate that question.
That's how everybody
hide my head.
I used to love it. I tell
we
people
met online.
we met on Farmers Only.
I had to resort to the internet to pull a chick. This is ridiculous. I'm supposed to be a closer and a salesman, man.
Yeah, we met in a bar. I mean, is there?
Talk about cliche.
What's fun is like when to tell people, oh yeah, we met on Match.com. People are like, oh, we met on Tinder. I'm like, that's not the same. That's not the same.
Match.com is classier.
You have to fill out a questionnaire.
Yeah. So we met. I didn't like him at first. I thought he was really boring, and I thought he had very sketchy eyebrows. And he just talked about business the whole time. And at one point in the dinner, he was like mid-sentence, and I got up and just went to like the buffet because we were at Rodizio.
Oh.
So he's just talking and I just like grabbed my plate and just walked off. And I was not very kind at all. But I was seeing like the business side of Michael. And then afterwards, I think we went on a walk and it started raining. And then we like ran to his car and we went on a drive. And I don't know why, but we like went to a store to buy like candy or something.
I don't remember.
But that's when like we were going down the candy aisle and we were talking about like, oh, do you like this candy? Do you like this candy? And then we were like, oh yeah, I used to have that when I was a kid. Or, oh, did you have this when you were a kid? So then I started seeing him like light up and saying, okay, he's got more of a personality. And then our date was done and he texted me that he liked me and I didn't respond to him. And then a couple of days later, we started talking and we went out on a second date. And our second date, I really started to see his fun, loving side. He had ordered a drink and he had thought like it was like just like a regular drink, but like it was served and like it was a pink drink with like a little umbrella and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so seeing that, like he totally owned it and was just like, well, this is what it is. And I got to see another side of him. I'm like, okay, he can be fun. He can connect with me on.
That's great. It was a pink drink.
Yeah.
That connected you.
So, and then at the time I was studying sign language interpreting and I was working for a company that does like the subtitles for phone calls for deaf people. And my goal was to be a sign language interpreter. And then when we started dating and then getting more serious, it was like, well, I can interpret for deaf people for him with real estate clients. And then that turned into, well, then I should just get my license and do it for myself. And then that just turned into, I should just go full blown into real estate. And so that's how it got started.
That's so cool.
That's really cool. How about you, Michael? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Tehachapi, California. It's like Heber or like Tooele. Looks the exact same as Tooele, but it's in like southern California. So I grew up there.
Desert country, right?
Yeah, high desert, but like people in LA call it the mountains. It's like Tooele.
Right.
It's just like it. Like just kind of rolling hills, brown. So I grew up there. My parents owned a nursery and a landscape company for like 25 years. Small town, like one junior high, one high school. My dad was extremely well connected because he owned a business there for like 25 years. So growing up in that environment is the biggest gift I've ever been given because I'm growing up in a small family-owned business. You know, his mom and dad, they had employees and stuff, but like just seeing, and there's a nursery business, so it's very seasonal. Like I remember when the economy wasn't good in the 90s, just high pressure, like plants is not, you know, that's disposable income type stuff. And I grew up hating the snow and the weather because I would feel the pressure if it's springtime and we just brought in a full truckload of plants from Oregon or wherever and like we got snow, you know, there was always like the threat of it killing the plants, which was like our livelihood. So I just grew like growing up in this family where the business ran us, like it wasn't the other way around. But just learning the value of a dollar and hard work and understanding relationships and like your name and your word and like just how powerful that is. And I call it small town. I think people who are from a small town, they have something about them that's a little different, especially with relationships. Yeah. Because you can't fuck around in a small town. Like it's going to get out. So you know, like your
It'll
name,
get around quick.
Yeah. Your name and your word is everything. So that's like the foundation of who I am and really kind of helped me. It's been my biggest gift. So anyways, did that. Fast forward. I got into inside sales when I was 19 in the nursery business doing like for wholesale side. So I supported like 7 outside reps that had, you know, like so I had Western Canada and different places. So I was just doing inside sales, calling on these guys' customer bases. It was outside sales. And that's when I really like got my taste for business and I kicked ass. I like broke a company record, sold $2 million when I was like 19. And
wow.
So I was getting confident, and that's when I read my first like Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude book, and that's really when I started understanding like, you know, reading and self-development. And then so I left there and I went out on my own as a broker, basically. So I had rights to sell product in Alberta, Canada, British Columbia, and then like 6 states in the Western U.S. So I moved to Utah. My brother came with me because it's kind of centrally located. So anyway, I started doing that. So then I was doing outside sales, like cold calling on nurseries. I'd literally roll into Boise, Idaho. I'd Google all the nurseries, and I'd go cold call them. and I looked like I was probably 15 at the time, but I just show up. I had a photo album of all our stuff and a catalog and like an availability list. And I just did that for 4 years and built this territory up to about $500,000 in sales. I was 1099 commission only, had to pay my own way. But I would drive everywhere because I couldn't rent a car because I wasn't 25. So like I would go on like 2-week road trips, you know, leave Utah, go like eastern Idaho, all through Montana, then up into Canada, over to Alberta, Canada, then down. And I was just doing that whole thing. And then to kind of rewind, when I first got interested in real estate, my dad sold his business when I was like a sophomore or a junior in high school. And he took the money and went and bought a bunch of lots. And then he partnered with a guy that he had known for a long time who was a general contractor. So my dad brought the lot and he floated all the money for the project. And then the other guy built the houses. And they were doing that like right before, like probably 2005 to 2008. So they just crushed it. So I saw him make all this money, and I'm doing real estate. I'm like, okay, cool, real estate's where it's at, but when you're 18, it doesn't seem real that you can do it. But that planted the idea of real estate, and then growing up in a family-owned business, the entrepreneur thing's just been in me since, like, my grandpa was an entrepreneur, my dad is. It's just what it is.
What a gift. Huh?
Yeah. So I was out on the road. My brother asked me, like, hey, are you going to be home this weekend? Because I spent like 6 months out of the year on the road traveling for doing my sales shit. And Dean Graziosi was in town that weekend. He's like, you want to go to this house flipping seminar? I was like, yeah, dude, let's do it. So we went to that, ended up signing up for it. Took a year and 94 offers. I'll repeat that, a full year and 94 offers.
You made 94 offers.
And a year before we got our first deal. Because I didn't know shit about anything, right? So it was like green as green could be. Like going to Home Depot, understanding like how much does a toilet cost and just grinding it out, figuring it out, right? So we finally got that first deal.
When was that? What year was that?
So we sold it 2012.
2012.
So I've been like 10 years in the business now. Yeah, so started with that, did that deal. We made 24 grand. We bought another one. We lost 50 grand on our second deal, lost like 10 grand on our third deal, broke even on our fourth deal. And so the first like 18 months was really hard. We had a couple wholesale deals in there that like, you know, kind of got us through.
Kept you going on.
We literally didn't have the money for the utilities. Like I would keep the temperature at these vacant houses we carried all winter at like 50 degrees so the pipes wouldn't freeze, you know. So we'd have a showing request, like one showing a week, like 2012, 13, like
it was slow.
It took fucking 4 or 5 months to sell a house on the market, you know. So
remember that when you would put a house up and you'd like hope that somebody would show it.
Yes. So we'd get a showing request. I'd drive over the house, turn the heat up, wait for him to leave, be blowing the agent's photo up. How'd it go? You know, like, what can we do to make him write an offer? Like, we're willing to make adjustments. Just, you know, desperate as desperate could be to sell a house and get an offer.
Did you offer a Mexico trip at one point?
Yeah. Like, I was going through with my mom, showing her some of our first flips. And, like, we had in there, like, you know, full like week in Mexico, because my dad's had all these like timeshares in Mexico. He's got 50, 100 weeks, whatever it is. We were offering a week trip to Mexico, all expenses paid for a full price offer. Like, and just reading the listing descriptions, it was pretty funny. We were laughing about that. This was a few months ago. But anyway, so did that. That's kind of how I got started. Got my real estate license naturally to be able to list our homes, make a commission if we buy something, MLS access, all that shit. Got mortgage license in 2015, and then just fast forward to where we are today. And like you said, we flip about 40 homes a year. We got the mortgage company, real estate brokerage, 58 unit portfolio, do some hard money stuff. And now we're starting to take the money that we're making in our businesses and invest it into other businesses or just, you know, other cash flow opportunities. So that's kind of an overview of what we got going.
That's so amazing. Such an amazing story.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your guys' like biggest struggle? What was the biggest grind that you've had to overcome, like both of you, whether in childhood or through the business? What would you say was one of the hardest things you've had to go through?
And business would be that first like 18 months or 2 years of real estate. And just when we sold the first flip. And so to set some framework. So I started doing this in 2012. Kia and I met in like 2015. So she, you know, picked up like she didn't experience the hard times for sure of getting going. But when I when we sold the first one, that first flip, I basically shut down my broker business that I had spent 4 years building. So I was like all in on real estate. And then we started eating shit on these deals and having like really hard time and just bad experiences. But in those moments, you know, it was like literally, like I would just say, like my battle cry getting through that was like plan B is reinforcing plan A and just removing quitting off the table as an option. And also understanding like the business that I was in, the nursery business, had a ceiling, and I knew that. Like the idea of making more than a couple $100,000 there just wasn't real. So acknowledging that and understanding that, and then realizing that real estate is a vehicle that I can make real money at, and just committing to it and saying plan B is reinforcing plan A. Like, this is what I'm fucking doing. Like, and removing quitting off the table. And that's probably the biggest thing that's got me to where I'm at.
Yeah.
That is so killer. That mindset of like, I've actually never heard that. Plan B is reinforcing plan A.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard burn the ships, like no turning back, all that, but that's different. That's saying, not only am I all in, I'm all in, and I'm going to find out what it takes to make plan A work.
That's funny. That's when we got married in 2012.
Okay.
I got my real estate license in 2011. He couldn't get his real estate license again. He had just given his up. He was actually like right before we met, he was done with real estate. He was like
completely out, washed out. 2008, took my legs out. I was ready to quit.
Dude, I always like talk to people who have been in the business longer, and I'm like, it would be interesting to see what a me today would have going on in 2008 and how it would have shaken out. Like, it probably would have been a pretty rough ride.
It was so rough. It was
well,
so hard.
I'll tell you, like, one thing you've got going for you that I see, like, as I think about my younger self, your level of integrity seems to me, and I'm just speaking from the outside, so that's all it is. But like, it seems like your level of integrity is off the charts. Like, and I mean, like you own your shit. You like, one of the things that drew me to you was your house in Lehigh that you lost money on. Uh-huh. I don't remember it. We were out of town when you were trying to move it, and you sent it to me, and I was looking at it, but like I didn't have the forces to get out there. But like, you posted a story on social media about losing money. Yeah. And I thought, this guy gets it, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. Like, there's hard shit. And my like modus operandi before 2008 was the opposite. It was try to make everything look like everything's great and only focus on the wins and only show the wins, and don't worry about the ugly shit. Like, just push that away, because nobody really needs to see that anyways. And you kind of take a different approach to that. And that's why I say, like, your emotional maturity is like through the roof, because you do that. How did you develop that?
I don't know, man. I just show it all, but a couple of reasons. Number one is I'm just not down with all the fake bullshit that you see people posting all the time. And then, you know, in the house flipping world, you have all these HGTV shows and all this stuff. And only on TV can you blow your budget by $100,000 and everything go wrong and still make 80 G's on a deal. It's like, that's just not fuck. That's
no,
not
if you do that in real life, you're fucked.
Yeah. So there's that piece to it. But also, when I get the comments, oh, it must be nice, fucking pisses me off, because like, so really, like, I just like to show both sides, because number one, nobody does, so it's something unique to me. It's like, I'm going to show you I actually have a harder time showing the wins, and have a harder time, like, just, you know, like, I bought the Ferrari and I didn't, like, super reserved about, like, you know, sharing it, or like, oh, look, the Rolex I just bought. Like, I'm not flashy that way because of where I come from and just the value of $1 and all the stuff. So I have a hard time sharing the wins, but it's a lot easier for me to talk about the losses, not from a victim standpoint, but it's just like, that's the side no one talks about. And people need to understand, like, you know, when we were first going and doing our deals, it was 94 offers in a year. It's not like you sign up for a fucking weekend program and all of a sudden you're flipping 10 homes a year. That's just not. Maybe that's how it works for other people, but it hasn't been my experience. So I just really think, like, setting a fair expectation and what it actually looks like. And that's part of, like, the transparency, the integrity, the leading by example, and just not being full of shit. And I think it's important too that, like, in this world that we have of social media, everyone's always comparing themselves to people's highlight reel, So I'm like, it's just not how I roll. So I like to share it all.
Yeah.
And I need to do better, and I'm starting to do better at showing the wins too, but I don't know. It's just kind of what my approach has been.
That's so true. Yeah, I think back to 2011 when I first got my real estate license, we kind of had to. That's when we first were drawn to flips because that's the only place we could make money. I can remember going out on listing appointment after listing appointment, having to tell people you're going to have to pay $20,000 to sell your house.
Yeah.
And they were like, what? Or we could do the short sell thing, but it's going to take 6 months to get approved. And that's like what the market was. It was insane. And so we got to a point where we could only depend on steady income from doing flips.
Yeah.
And it was
controlling the market. That was kind of our, we were going to control inventory. That was our thought.
And when we first got into doing it, we were doing the majority of the work ourselves. So trying to find just any Joe Schmo to come in and do the tile for us, the stuff that we didn't know how to do. And it was crazy. But one thing I wanted to talk about, so something that I thought was super cool about you guys is I wanted you to talk about your brain aneurysm. Is that what it was? Tumor, whatever it was?
It was a brain tumor.
Tumor, yeah. Because again, we've dealt with so much shit and so much adversity, and we had to get to this place where we were like, this is a gift. This isn't happening to us. This is happening for us. Mm-hmm. And again, we'll talk about it later, but we see that in you guys too. So,
yeah, the way your post about that experience was so it was so grounding and it was so real. And so for people who haven't read your post, do you mind just sharing really quick your experience there?
And first, I want to say thank you for sharing that because that's why I made that post. Is because now that we're on the tail end of it. People are starting to find out, and it's still so new to me to talk about it, let alone say I had a brain tumor. But people's reactions, because I didn't know how to say it, they'd be like, holy fuck. And it's I don't want that energy or that response anywhere near my experience because this experience is still going through. I'm still healing.
Or just, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. You didn't tell me? How could you not tell me? And it's don't make this about you. This is my experience. You do not have that right.
Right.
And it's controlling. I wouldn't say controlling, but making an effort of everything that I can to keep this space and this energy flowing and not allowing peace or letting people make it about them because it's not. Yeah. But basically, kind of just to start from the beginning, Michael is he's in a group called the RT Syndicate. It's created by Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. And there was a summit 2 years ago in January. And we were in Whistler, Canada. And we were all in a bar hanging out. And I had been having some issues with my hormones. I didn't have a period. I had saw 7 doctors. And they all told me, oh, that's totally fine. Once you come off birth control, go home. And then I had my primary doctor, who I actually saw 3 times for it. And he was just you're fine. Go home. It's fine. If you want to have a period, sorry for all your male listeners, but if you want to have a period, here's a prescription. I'll give you 1 period. And it's no, I just felt like something was off and I wasn't being heard. And that was just their response. That's normal. Go home. It's not normal. So we were in this bar in Whistler after the summit, and we started talking to this super tall, goofy dude named TJ. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm a functional medicine doctor in St. Louis. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, hey, do you know anything about hormones? And he's like, yeah, I know a lot. And I was like, cool, let's get hooked up. So we came home, and I started doing all these tests for him. They were blood tests, any test that you could possibly imagine we did. So initially, we found out I had high heavy metals in my blood. I had mold, and my stomach didn't have any biome. I wasn't even digesting any food. I wasn't absorbing any nutrients. So we made certain phases, and so we just kind of made an attack plan, and then I had 3 phases, and I immediately started getting better, and then it stopped. And he's like, something else is going wrong. I don't know. Something else is happening, and you should be totally fine now. And then we were heading out of town, and Michael had started working with TJ as well. And Michael had some blood tests set up, and then he called Michael and was like, hey, I actually want to test Kia for something, so have her go with you. And it was just a blood test. With TJ, I never really asked any questions. From my experience with him, is he listened so much to me, and it wasn't like, okay. It was like, oh, well, if you're experiencing this, you probably have this too. And I was like, yeah, I do. I never really asked questions with him after that. I just trusted him. So we did the blood tests. I think we went to Florida.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Anyways, and we came home, and I was in the office, and he called me, and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, cool, what's up? And he's like, I think I'm pretty positive what's wrong. And he's like, do you have a minute to talk? And I was like, yeah, what's going on? And he's like, well, it's one of two things. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but we have to not X out, cancel, eliminate. We have to eliminate one option. I'm like, okay, what's up? He's like, the first one, you're pregnant. And I'm like, I'll call you back. And I like race to the store, take a pregnancy test. I come back and I call him, and I'm like laughing. And I'm like, it's all good.
Not pregnant.
We're not negative. And then I just heard him. And I was like, that's not good. And he was like, that was actually the lesser of the scary options. And I was like, okay. And he's like, you can't freak out. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I think you have a tumor on your pituitary. And when he said that, like, you know how like in Charlie Brown, like the teacher's like, wah, 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 wah. That's what happened. Like I knew he was talking, but it was like slowly like getting like more like blurry. And then I was just in this weird, strange place with my thoughts. And I was just thinking to myself, like, tumor on my pituitary. I'm like, that's okay. My pituitary is in my brain. So if I have a tumor on my pituitary, then there's a tumor in my brain. There's a tumor in the brain. And then I'm like, oh my God, I have a brain tumor. And it's like snaps out of it. And then he's still talking about like what the next steps are. And I'm like, I'm sorry, can you just repeat like everything that you just said again? And he was like, I know. He's like, this does not have to be scary. He said, we're going to figure this out. We're going to get through this. And his intervention and his approach was this really set the tone for all of it. And it's really a witness of how medicine can be done differently. So I was in the office. I heard Michael screaming at a contractor, firing him. And I walked in, and I'm like kind of shaking, and I'm like, I need to talk to you. And he's like, not now. I'm like, I need to talk to you. And he's like, not now. And I'm like, this is more important. He's like, not fucking now. And I'm like, this takes fucking precedence. And he was just like, okay. And so I put TJ on the phone, and I put him on speaker, and I said, TJ, can you please repeat what you just said? And I still can't remember what he said, but I just remember looking at Michael, and he was standing, and then his shoulders softened, and then I saw him sit down, and then I saw his face change, and like it getting real in that moment. And so he told me that we'd have to confirm with an MRI, which I went on to like just like tailor-med MRI or whatever, and I scheduled the first one the next morning. We got off the phone, and we just kind of were in this weird limbo space of we don't know for sure. We just have the level that was tested, which was prolactin, and it's only elevated when you have a tumor or when you're pregnant. So the next morning we got up, we went to the MRI, and I remember like, I wouldn't say denial, but I was still thinking like, there's no way. Like if I would know. And then the lady came on the intercom. I had done like, I think I was there for like 20, 30 minutes. And she's like, okay, this is the last test. It's going to be 2-minute long test, and then I'll come back on, and then we're done. I'm like, okay, cool. We did the last test. And then she came back on, and she's like, actually, we're going to do one more. And then right there, I was like, okay, they for sure found something. And then it's just still being in this limbo area of like, there's so much unknown. But what I do know is what TJ said is it doesn't have to be scary. So they said they'd email me the results. Within an hour, I had my results, and I didn't even look at them because I didn't even know what I was looking at. Sent him to TJ. And I remember I was driving on Wasatch, and he called me. And I answered the phone, and he was like, hey, so obviously you saw the report. You have a large mass. And when he said like the word mass, I was like, okay, this is confirmed. Like it's real. And so I was like, TJ, let me pull over real quick. And I remember I pulled into like the crumble cookie and was like, okay, this is where I'm going to hear this, is in front of a fucking crumble cookie. And he was telling me that it definitely needs to be taken out. And he's going to look into different surgeons, but to stay calm and not freak out. And then he's like, do you want to call Michael? So I started calling Michael. I don't know where you were at. So I turned around, I went home, and Michael called me when I was heading home, and I was like, it's confirmed, I have a tumor. And so we went home and we sat on our deck, and I just remember it's so weird to be in this. It was so weird to be in this space it was shocking, but there was no fear, and it was really, really beautiful. Wow. And then he came home, and we just made a pact right there that we're going to control this space, and we control who's allowed into this space and what this energy is around it. And if anyone that can't hold that space or can't show up for us in that way that we need, they were not invited in. That includes parents, that includes siblings, that includes best friends. Like, I don't care who it is, they didn't know. And at that point, I was literally under contract with my cousin, and we made this pact, and I had to go to a home inspection. And I remember walking in and just thinking, like, I have an opportunity here to either not look at it and just pretend it's not there, or look at it dead on and be like, this is happening, this is okay, and it just gets to be right here, and I get to be right here right now, and just putting it to the side, but still knowing, like, this is happening, and I'm not going to not look at it. Went to the home inspection, and then I remember walking out of the home inspection and getting in my car and just thinking, like, wow, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, of just continuing forward and not getting caught up in the emotions and the fear. So our Dr. TJ, he sent it to, sorry if I'm rambling.
No. Wait, you're doing great.
Pick up and move it along a little bit.
So we sent it to TJ, or TJ sent it to our other friend in our ROT syndicate, and her husband is a radiologist, and he read it and was like, yeah, this thing definitely needs to come out. And he had a friend in Coeur d'Alene who was like, he was a neurosurgeon. He's like, yeah, I could do it, but the world's best surgeon for this surgery is at the University of Utah. And so I'm like, awesome.
Wow.
So we sent the scans to him. His office showed him my scans. He cleared his schedule to get me in. And so we went in, and I was still like, okay, like, maybe I don't have to have surgery or something. He pulled it up, and I remember like looking at the screen, and he's like, so he's talking about my tumor, and I'm like, what's my brain and what's my tumor? I don't know. And then he's like, this area, this entire cavity, it's filling the entire cavity. And they were going through the process, and I was like, okay, so we're having surgery. And I remember it just moved so quickly, and then he left, and I was like, okay, the appointment's over. And then they opened up the calendar, and they're like, okay, so the soonest that insurance can schedule it is 14 days. So we're going to open up the 15th day. So on October 21st. Okay. And then I was like, that's weird. Why'd they just say October 21st? That's like in like 3 weeks. And then I was like, I'm sorry, what's happening on October 21st? And the nurse is like, you're having surgery. And that's when I was like, okay, this is all happening so fast, but it's having that moment again of like, let it, don't block it. Don't get in the way of it. Let it flow. And so then, it created a whole process of like tests and things that I had to do to get ready for surgery. And we knew that he was out of network, and we knew no matter what, he was doing the surgery. And of course, insurance denied it. And he had said, we're really good at fighting for our clients, so we'll make sure that we fight for you. And then I don't even know what happened. We're going through all the tests, and having it not covered was not an option for me. I just knew it was going to be. We got the call that it was covered, and then I think it was like 2 days later I had surgery. And with surgery, it's still really foggy. I don't remember a ton of it. I just remember, this is really funny, but the one thing I remember of surgery day is being in there, and the part that they left out is that I had to have a breathing tube, and I'd never had a breathing tube before, and so I was like kind of starting to freak out. And Michael's like, you need to give her something right now. And so like they were talking to me and they were trying to distract me, and I don't know what they gave me, and then it like hit me, and I just was like, holy fuck. Like it's like looking at the doctor, and I like couldn't like move. Anyways. Sorry. And then so I had the surgery, so they actually went up through my nose and scooped it out. It's like a yogurt consistency.
Wow.
So they didn't have to cut my hair. They didn't have to cut me. I had like really minimal bruising. And then I remember waking up, and it was just, everything was so calm. And I had this recovery group in the recovery room, and like they were just so kind and so loving, and it really like set that tone of that space that we created. Like they were like, oh girl, we've got you, like don't even worry about it, like do you want us to brush your hair? Like it was just really cool how we created this space around it, and we only allowed people that can hold that space in, and including people that we didn't know. Anyone that came into that space, it's almost like they picked up on that energy, and that's how they approached it.
That's so cool.
So sorry for the rambles.
It's not rambling at all.
So
it's such a beautiful story, and the way you contextualized it by, like, first of all, keeping space. Mm-hmm. That's something we like, and also not running away from it.
Yeah.
These are some really key principles for. We call our podcast a True Life Balance podcast, not because we believe in life balance. Mm-hmm. It's because it's almost like almost a joke. We believe in harmony, though.
Yeah.
Like we believe that there can be harmony as we go through these imbalances,
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's what you're describing is finding harmony, finding peace, finding almost wonder and awe in this experience.
In an area where, like a place where it's almost impossible to be completely at peace. Like in the fact that you guys were able to like go through an experience like that in peace and harmony. Yeah. I don't know.
A couple of things I want to add to all that I think super critical. Like probably the last year for Kia and the last 2 years for me, we've been doing heavy like self-development, not like reading books and goals, but like true self-development, spiritual work, like programming, like stuff with ourselves. So having that foundation really played a huge role in this whole deal. And we know like for her, it was a physical thing, but it was so much more than just a physical thing. There's a spiritual piece, an energy piece, an emotional piece for her, and like stuff that she's been working on. And that's just the way that it showed up physically. So being in touch with like this spiritual realm that we're in, and I'm not talking religion, I'm talking like spiritual shit with yourself, that allowed us to kind of set the foundation of everything. But also when we got the phone call, we went outside our office, and I remember looking at her and just saying, we don't get to attach any meaning to any of this. We don't have enough information to jump to conclusions. Like you hear the word brain and the word tumor, and it's fucking scary, and you just go to worst case scenario. And I remember just trying to take a leadership role in that moment, and just looking at her and hugging her and telling her, like, we're not making assumptions. We don't get to put any meaning on what this means because we don't have enough information to even know. And that kind of was the beginning of creating this space that we were in, and then like her mom didn't know, my dad didn't know, but that was like the work that we had been doing on ourselves is really what set the tone for us to be in that place. Like if this had happened 2 years ago, it would have been an entirely totally different scenario. It would have been nothing but drama and fear and scary, and like just feeding into all of that, and then bringing in all our supporting cast of like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And just like, it would have been a chaotic situation. But because we had been doing what we had been doing, that was a huge part. Another thing that I think is important to note is the Arete Syndicate is this like mastermind group that I paid $70,000 to be in. And the relationships that we built there. So like through, because I'm always talking about self-development, and the people you spend your time around, and the environment that you're in is like super serious for us. So like the environment we created for ourselves and set the tone with, but So it's doing what we talk about, right? It's not just fucking something that sounds cool on a podcast or Instagram, but also the network. So TJ was in that. Like, we would have never, like, she had 7 other doctors, just one.
You would have never gotten that information.
So TJ was there, and then another lady named Evie who was in the group as well. Her husband was a radiologist. So, like, how our network was involved with everything. And then we have another buddy that we're a business partner with now too, but he's also a doctor. So we were able to call, we had TJ, but then we were able to talk to this other guy, Alex, who's a dear friend of ours, and get his opinion on it. And just the power of the network, because we've invested in ourselves, and how that literally shifted everything. Like, we got a referral to the top doctor in the country through two channels deep on our network, you know what I mean? And that's like a big deal.
That's powerful.
I literally wrote down, Michael, the power of a network, like, as you were telling the story. And I've got a friend that's going through some hard shit, and he wants to make changes. And the first thing I told him is, like, you've got to change your network. You want to make changes, you have got to upgrade your network. And, like, without your network, who knows what the end is, and also or how, like, this story goes, right? And I am curious, because I'm big into personal development and on this journey, and it's only been recently that I've acknowledged personal development is spiritual development. And like you said, I'm not talking about religion. Yeah. I'm talking spiritual development. And it means one thing for me, but I'm curious, like, when you guys say that, and if you have something you want to add.
No, as I was hearing you talk and the language that you were using, I knew there had to have been a spiritual element to it, because
1,000%.
100%.
Yeah, because we've been through, like, when he went to jail, that was one thing that, like, hit me really hard, is there's going to have to be a belief in something bigger than us for us to be able to get through this the best way possible. And so, like, I want to pry a little bit more about what was the work you guys were doing, like, what, like, specifically that could help other people understand what that means.
Just so I've been doing, like, plant medicine ceremonies, and just diving into spiritual stuff. I hired I have a life coach that Kia coaches with now. I've been through her program. So for, like, 2 years, I've been, doing this whole thing, and it's like, that's true self-development. It's not reading books and going to seminars. For the longest time, I attached self-development towards, like, the business side, right? So it was like learning sales and mindset and all of this stuff. And I've always been looking and wanting more information. And I've never been a religious person. I've always kind of had, like, I'm very anti-religion. I think I think religion is where man gets in the way of, like, human and God, and what that connection looks like for you. So I just have never really been born, like, don't have a whole lot of religious influence. And I moved to Utah, where you have this unique culture here with everything going on, and witnessing that from a third, like, outside of it, I just reconfirms all of that. So getting in touch with the spiritual piece and really understanding who God is for me has been cool. So I forgot where I was going with all that. But anyways, doing all of that work. And then Kia's she's been doing that too. I'm about a year.
I'm coming up on a year.
Yeah. So, like, she watched me do all that stuff for, like, a year. But so what I was saying is, like, I've always attached, like, self-development towards business, right? But this is that missing link, is this true personal development with my stuff and my patterns and my programming and all the shit that has to do with me and not the external world. And getting in touch with that, it's like, oh, this is that missing link that I've always been looking for. I just thought it was, like, more geared towards business. So that's like really made me fulfilled and full. So as I'm doing this and Kia's watching it, like, I'm getting better, and then leading by example. And, like, now my mom's kind of going down this path. My brother is, like, Kia is. And then so as we grow as individuals, so I'm growing, and Kia's growing as an individual. And then we have the couple unit together. But yeah, I mean, that without doing that work and having that framework in place, like, this whole thing with her would have been nothing but chaos. And there's cool. So Kia and I, we, like, 3 is our number, and 3 shows up everywhere in my life. Like, I was born on March 9th, which is 3, and 9 is 3 times. We were married on September 3rd. So like 3 just comes up everywhere. And so part of her surgery is they had to take a skin graft or a fat graft to like basically plug her nose
where they broke the cavity.
And it's a hatchet job of a fucking like scar and cut. Like they're like, oh yeah, you know, we're gonna have to give a little piece, and they're showing us like a little 1/2-inch deal, and she has this big thing. So we were on the phone, and we've known all along that this is like this has nothing to do with the physical.
It's so spiritual.
Like we've known, and a lot of healing and stuff that she's like working on and through, and to be in touch with that and know that that's real is just really the comfort level for us, and be able to keep this like energy in the safe space, like very calm, that we've been talking about. That's kind of the foundation of all of it, is the spiritual, just where we're at with that, and the journey we're on with that. But anyways, I'm talking with Kia on the phone, and she's talking about like, you know, I mean, she's got a gnarly incision, and I was in the 7-Eleven at the base of Big Cottonwood. It's funny how we remember where we are. And she's talking about it, and I get this message, like I'm getting chills talking about it. Like as she's talking on the phone, this thing comes through my head, all the way through my body. I get the total chills, and I was like, babe, it's that scar's for you. This is like, I have chills everywhere. I'm like,
I did too.
I'm like, that is for you. That scar's a reminder. I said, go measure it. 3 inches on the dot, and 3 is our number. Like you can see that. So just, you know, cool stuff like that. And the more that we lean into that work and stuff, the more that there's just confirmation. And that's why I've started my podcast. It's really why I've took the hard stand that I did during COVID. And I've just been like, you know what, fuck this, like thinking you have to do this and just living a bullshit life and sitting there and settling and doing what you're told and following in line and just being a fucking little bitch to whoever they are. And that's really kind of where I've, through that whole thing, found my voice and planted my flag, and just like, no, I'm gonna show the world and everyone else, like, you don't have to do all this, don't live a bullshit life. And that's kind of where the foundation of where you came across my social media, and really me just saying, developing and blossoming into like who I am, what my message is, what our message is, and these leaders that we're trying to be to the world. But like how proud I am of her going through this, and like there's like a year or two ago it would have been entirely different. She would have been a total wreck. And so that's just a true testament of, like, in life we have tests, but like seeing this thing come up and we passed it in flying colors, and like the amount of just positive blessings. Like you have like the situation right here, short list, and then like the list of like all the positive shit that's come through this, you know, brain tumor, is like the amount of gifts that have come from that, like, has just been awesome. So fucking for us individually, but like, you know, specifically Kia. And so anyway, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I mean, like, I can't tell you how many times we just lay in bed at night and we're so grateful, and we're so in awe of the incredible people that we're surrounded with. And literally, I mean, to the point where people that know our truth and know our hearts so much that one of our friends, it was like a couple of days after we had found out, and I was still like in this limbo area, but I'm still wanting to like be myself, because I am myself and I'm real. And one of my friends messaged me, and she's like, what's going on with you? Like, something's off. And I was just like, oh, it's nothing. We've just got some stuff going on. She's like, no, what's going on? And then we told her, and like her responses will be there next week. They live in Florida, and it was the amount of support that we were shown from people that are in our lives and people that have been coming into our lives, and the relationships that were strengthened. It's all part of doing the work. It's all connected. Yeah. So
we were, Tiff and I were actually in ceremony just last Saturday with Combo, sitting with
awesome.
Combo. Yeah. And one of the things that came to me is, first of all, to trust, like the importance of trust.
Huge.
But the other thing is, and I watch you guys do it, and it's so inspirational, is like you take this message, you take this learning, you take this gratitude, and then you go out and you fucking do the real work, which is the integration into life. Like you don't just go and like retreat into the mountains, and which is cool too. I mean, to sit and wonder in awe at night at the beauty of your surroundings and the people around you. But then you get up and you go do the work. Like it's it's fucking inspiring because this is what we're talking about, like this harmony of you've got this beautiful feminine energy of like wonder and awe, and then this masculine energy of, and we've got to go do this, this, and this. Yeah.
We actually
like that's what gives me the goosebumps is that integration, that beautiful, chaotic dance between all of that. And you guys are doing it like at a super high level and inspirational for so many people, at least me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We were in ceremony 5 days before my surgery. And during that time, I don't know why. I know why. But I just knew this was a perfect opportunity to truly prepare my mind, body, and spirit. And so I gathered some people that were there, and I laid down, and I had them all surround me. And I just connected with laying on the operating table and knowing I'm loved, I'm taken care of, this is guided, and this is such a true witness that God is everywhere. And that, I think, was what really shifted the actual, like, surgery day. And, like, waking up when I was, like, they were, like, pumping me full of fentanyl. I kept telling them, like, no, I don't want that, because I didn't feel conscious, I didn't feel out of it, and then I had that same energy that I had experienced in ceremony come through, and it's just like, you're okay. We love you. We're here. And it was really a beautiful experience.
That is beautiful. So as I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk about like the support that you had and the people that you allowed into the space, I can't help but wonder, like, because we've experienced it, have you also gone through experiencing like the opposite, like a lot of your circle falling away as you guys are experiencing growth and change?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an ongoing thing, and like you just have to constantly be monitoring your environment. And that's what I'm talking about all the time is like, like not everyone's coming with you along the journey. And it's hard because you've got, our family and our friends, and I'm extremely loyal in this, you love people, but like, you just got to realize also like not everyone's coming along the journey, you know what I mean? And it's just, it is what it is,
I heard this saying yesterday that if you know someone is a poisonous snake, just because they're not biting you, are they still a poisonous snake? And that made so much sense to me specifically with people in our lives that they're not at our vibration anymore. And I still love them. I can still love this snake, but they're not welcome in my home, in my life.
But I think it's also like the more that you are just doing the work and trying to get better every day and just doing the thing. And like, as we're growing, like new people come into our life and like, it's just not really focused on like who's not there. It's just kind of doing what we're doing and noticing like the people that are showing up and coming in. Like we met you guys 6 months ago and we have the connection that we do. And like some of the, like, it's interesting. So Kia, I would say Kia's best friend right now. She's known her for
13 years. But
just in the last like year, they've become like sisters, and they've known each other this whole time. They had a mutual best friend, and it's been cool for me to watch that happen. And I've always been, I'm not from Utah, so like most of the people I know are in business or real estate, and I've been a little like kind of extreme with the whole, when I first started listening to Grant Cardone and 10X, and really like people are either assets or liabilities, and I took it a little too extreme. Like if people aren't successful and they're not doing shit, then like I don't have time for them. So I've actually rolled back on that, but it's been fun for me to watch Kia and like the group of friends that she had when we met, and now to see like the real, like see her have like real friends and quality friends, and like being able to watch her, especially through this whole situation, and watch her realize that she's got like a support group, like for real, not just like what she thought support looked like and what she thought good friends look like. And to watch that whole thing has been really awesome for me. But the more that we just keep doing what we're doing, like people, like the people who are in our life, who have been in our life, like those relationships just get better. But the new relationships that are coming in, like that's happening all the time too. So I think I see more of that happening than the thought of like, oh, I can't spend time with, you know, whoever, Nathan anymore, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So it's just more kind of, and like our coach that we have, she you know, she told me, like, as you raise your vibration and like as you ascend and stuff, the people that are in your life, like subconsciously on an energetic level, they're going to have to raise to meet you where you're at now, and either they'll do that or they won't. And the ones that don't, they just kind of they'll just fall off on their own. So it's not like you have to go through this, like, have hard conversations like, you know what, Brad, we can't be friends anymore. Okay, that's not just how
You're not at my level.
Yeah,
right.
Just kind of something that I think naturally happens, and you spend your time with the people that, you know, vibe with what you're doing, and that's just the flow of it. And I think others just kind of fade off.
Yeah, I've discovered about myself that I'm like a fixer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to like know what I know and experience what I experience. And I've spent too much of my life trying to say, hey, come with me. Like, seriously, this is so cool. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, it's hard because, like, you know, for me, like, I've always, now that I'm doing this stuff and, like, you know, my perception is growing and I'm seeing things, you know, differently, and like not realizing that not everyone has to be like me, right? But like I would feel like I want, like, for example, my brother, for the longest time I'd be like, dude, I want you to be successful more than you want to be successful for yourself. And I would get frustrated with just different people like that. It's like, dude, I want this more than you want it for yourself. But then realizing, like, with my brother, for example, we've been doing stuff together. He's a partner in the mortgage company, but for the longest time I would just get upset that he wasn't like me. And then I had this realization, like, probably 3 or 4 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, and I'm like, holy shit, he compliments me perfectly. Yeah. And I never saw that. It's like, how did I miss that this whole time? But it takes me being in a place of just kind of meeting people where they're at, and just not having to want to control it or it look like the way that I need it to. And the less that I'm that way, the more things just flow, if that makes sense.
That does.
And same thing with us too. Like, Kia's never gonna be me, you know, and like, so just trying to, I don't know what's the best way to explain that. Just
harmonize.
Yeah, focusing on just like, this is what I do. Not everyone needs to be like me, and being open to that has made my relationship so much better. But also not having this expectation. And Donna, my coach, she said one time, she's like, Michael, these high expectations that you have of people, because I'm trying to fix them, or I want stuff for them more than they do. She was like, are they even aware of your expectation? Number one, are they even aware that you have that? And number two, did they agree to it? And I was like, fuck. No and no, you know. And that was like a big moment for me, where it's like, I have so much freedom now, and not having to feel like I need to fix people, or getting upset that they're not wanting something the way that I want it, and it doesn't look the way for me, and being able to just let go of that judgment and that frustration, like, gives me so much freedom too. Plus, now I show up better in relationships, right? Because there's not that, like, you know, they're letting me down, even though I might not be saying it subconsciously. That's definitely being picked up on, and that just has allowed my relationships to be better, especially with those that probably work with me, whether it's Kia or my mom, my brother, whoever.
That's the irony of doing the work. That's what's so funny about it. Number one is the work is never done. There's truth in that. And number two, it's your work.
Mm-hmm. He can't do my work.
No,
it's your work. His work.
So at the end of the day, it's all about what is it about me that I need to work on? Mm-hmm. This resistance or uncomfortableness that I feel is not really about anything outside of me.
And there's a level of accountability and integrity that you have to hold. That if you don't hold within yourself, you're truly going against that vibration, and that's not a fun experience at all.
And one thing you said that's really important is, like, there's no destination. There's not like work is done. And, you know, I've been kicking absolute ass in this whole space. But, like, if I'm being honest, the last 3 months, I feel like I'm, like, negative step one with dealing with some of my underlying programming that's been coming up. So it's like the last, like, 10 months I've been sitting here thinking I'm smooth sailing, like, oh, I've fucking dealt with all the shit, and I'm like, if, you know, spiritual rock star, all this stuff, everything's good. And then, like, starting in late November all the way through, like, literally today, I've just been swimming in shit, you know. It's like the stuff that coming back through the back door, like things that are still like trapped emotions and just different things so it's like a ongoing process, you know. So like, even though I'm 2 years into all this stuff, like the last 3 months, I feel like I'm at step one, you know. And then the same thing, it's like, well, am I a bitch? Am I going to fucking quit on what I'm doing? Like, plan B is right. It's something that I do. It's not something that I did. So, there's not a destination, no matter what it is in business and life and all of that. Like, and I think, you know, they say like, if you're not growing, you're dying. And that truly is true. But I just think, one thing that I've been trying to learn is like, just fall in love with the process instead of always focus on like the end result. Because if I'm just focused on the end result, then I'm missing the entire journey. And I think really what I'm starting to learn is it's about the process, and that allows me to be present instead of always living in the future like I do.
Yeah, I feel like the universe has a way of doing that. Like, we definitely experience that when we're like kicking ass in one part of our life, whether it be our relationship with each other and with our kids. We have 8 kids, which throws a whole different
that's wild
dynamic into things. But whenever we feel like we have something figured out, we get smacked in the face with something else that feels so heavy, and it's just really interesting the way it works.
But I think like the smacks in the face and the things that come up, it's for us, you know. And that's really when, like, if you're taking personal accountability for everything in your life and like staying loyal to your potential, which that's my message, is personal accountability and staying loyal to your potential. But like, if you're being accountable for it and things are coming up, it's like, well, now it's not something that happened to me. I'm not a victim. Like, my wife didn't have a fucking brain tumor. It's like, oh wow, like this was a test for us, and we you know, like, how are we going to respond to it? How are we going to act to it? You know, same thing. Like, I've got a contractor right now. I've never sued anyone in my life, and I'm coming after this dude for like 80 grand right now. And just tying that to, like, he's literally just playing proxy for all of this stuff that I've been working on for the last 2 years, and it's brought a bunch of it that I thought I dealt with to the surface. So it's just this ongoing thing that I think, but like, stuff comes up, right? And either I think in life, like, shit comes up, and then however we deal with it, either we learn the lesson and we move on, or if we don't learn the lesson, then that same lesson is going to come up again, and it's up to us to either, you know, get it or not. And like, I've had multiple lessons that I've failed in the last few months, so I'm like, fuck, you know, like, get down on yourself, but it's like an ongoing thing. So I think being present and you know, just present and aware of what's going on, because like, there's so much coming in all the time from the outside world that it really, if we don't have the inside in check, it's going to allow the outside to really affect us in either a positive or a negative way.
Yeah. One thing that I heard recently that really resonated with me is, once you decide that you're going to be a warrior and like be a master of your, you know, your reality, and you're going to go out and accomplish hard shit, well, what you're telling the universe is, all right, it's time to go to war. So put the fucking armor on and get ready, and let's see how much you can handle. And we've definitely experienced that.
Well, I think I've been in warrior mode for a long time, and I think there's definitely, it's good to be a warrior, but what I've been learning is like, being in warrior mode all the time is also not good, because you bring in and you attract these situations where like, you have that warrior mentality, when really, if you took more of like a magician or like a different mentality, and that's like stuff that I've been fucking up on pretty bad the last few months. It's like, I don't always have to be in this like, and fuck you, ready to go mode, you know, warrior mode all the time, because that for me gets a little slippery, because there's a lot of ego and like anger and stuff can come through that too. So it's just interesting. But what's fun is when you can be aware and you see things happening, and like, then life just really becomes a journey, because it's like, it's fun, right? Like, different stuff's happening, you're growing, you're learning, you're doing it, and it's like, now we're not living this just like, go to work, you know, do work, and you go pay the bills, and maybe we have it like, we're not like going through this like 9 to 5 just boring life, right? Where it's like a living, moving thing.
Well, when you start to understand that how much your thoughts and the energy that you're putting off is actually affecting your reality, you're right. You can start to manipulate your day and your world and your life like in a
Absolutely.
in a better way to where it's not so hard, but yet the challenges that are coming are going to continue to be bigger and harder challenges. But if you approach them with, this grace and
accountability, though, too.
Yeah, major accountability. Like you have to be accountable for your reactions and how you're going to handle every situation that comes up and how you actually created this thing, this challenge that has come up, and being able to see it from this 30,000 foot view that like, oh yeah, I actually created this.
Well, we think and speak things into existence. Like we had like probably a 12-month run of just appraisals coming in low, and just like, and home inspectors like is
destroying houses.
Like I would sit there and I was just constantly saying these fucking appraisers appraising shit low, blowing up deals, and these stupid home inspectors, dumb fucking agents. And I was constantly talking about it, and I was literally speaking more of it into existence, all the way down to like so ridiculous that a home inspector one time told these buyers for one of our flips that we didn't use the right type of paint for the outside of the house, and that the washer drain line was an exposed sewer line. Like that's the extent of fucking ridiculousness that I was literally creating and speaking into existence. And then the warrior in me, or what I think is a warrior, and like I'm not fucking taking shit from anyone, but then that guy would show up and just pour fuel on this stupid situation, and it really just end up costing us time and money and hassle and heartache and headache. And really just seeing like we speak so much stuff into existence, both good and bad, so it's when we get into this place, it makes everything fun,
It's so funny. I feel like we've learned that exact same thing.
Yeah.
We just
what you focus on.
Yeah.
That is what you will continue to see. Yeah. Well, you guys, we're at an hour, and like we're gonna have to do this again like soon, because first of all, like, I needed this so bad. You have no idea how bad I needed this,
dude. It's literally everything we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like the attracting of everything. So
absolutely, awesome. And so many pertinent lessons, and I'm looking forward to listening to this again to hear more of it.
Yeah,
because like you guys are dropping bombs, and you too, sweetheart. And this has been absolutely beautiful. And I mean, like that night of the dark soul, and how do you get through that? How do you find the light? And I didn't know we were going here today. I did not know we were showing up and we were going here today.
What's cool about it is, I love business. I love it. And
so do I.
A lot of people want to like talk business, but this is the shit that gets me like actually like excited. It's like those are just deals anymore. But I'm super stoked that that's the way the conversation went. But again, like when it's an energy thing, and like we're probably sitting here thinking we're talking about real estate.
I thought we were going to speak mostly about real estate and like kicking ass and doing deals and building net worth.
But bro, this is the foundation of all of it. Like
absolutely, it's the richness, right?
Yeah, and like everyone's doing like people. My podcast is called Freedom Lifestyle Experience, and it's like what I'm learning. We want to make money, right? For what?
Right.
For freedom.
Right.
Right. And freedom looks different for everybody, but people want to be financially successful so they have time, so they have freedom, so they have a sense of security, so they can have the experiences in life. But freedom is really what we're all looking for. But if you're not free from yourself, like when you're with yourself and your thoughts and your emotions and your shit, you're going to be a fucking slave no matter how much money you have, no matter how hot your spouse is, no matter what cool material things you have, where you live, the vacations you go on, like you're showing up to all those places with you. And if you're always focused on external things for your internal happiness, it's never going to happen. It's always going to be a short-lived deal. So like for me, what we talked about today is like the foundation of everything. And that's where like all of the riches, like the more that I've worked on myself, the more that Kia works on herself, the better our relationship gets, the more money we make, the more like just everything else kind of takes care of itself, the more that you handle like the inside. So I'm stoked that the conversation went that way.
Me too.
Yeah, I can't say it better than that. I'm fine closing on that unless there's something else you want to say, sweetheart. This has been beautiful. Thank you guys so much. And I can't wait to do it again soon.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, well, let's make sure, because I want to make sure everybody knows your brands, because I want people to follow you, because the more people embrace this mindset and awaken to this simple, peaceful truth. Like the more especially men. Like we need to be understanding it's not just about showing up with the rich stuff. You can do that, but that's not the richness. That's not the freedom. Where can people follow you guys?
Well, and to add to that, man, like there's been this assault in society on masculinity, which is fucking bullshit. Yeah. Like, and women too, thinking they need to take the masculine role because there's no honor in having the feminine, which is absolutely fucking bullshit. And society's got it so twisted, and it's a lack of mindset, and it's coming from a victim mentality. But like a man cannot be his best version of his masculine self without like the feminine, and the feminine's the backbone of everything, and that yin and yang that Kia talks about. So, you know, that's one thing that we're sharing and talking about, but together, and what you guys are doing, but like the respect for the equal power of masculine and feminine together, like that's something that we're going to be really bringing in, trying to share that message with the world too, is because people have it twisted, and like, you know, all this mainstream media bullshit, and really like this attack on masculinity. Like we need men to be fucking men, and we need women to know that there's a ton of noble respect and power and owning their feminine parts. And when you put those two things together, like that's how it's going to make the world a better place. And that's also the example that like the next generation needs. So yeah, man.
We're
really
right
important.
there.
We're right there with you, kings and queens.
Feeling
100%.
drawn to that.
Your handles, social media handles. Oh, Michael got kicked off Instagram, which I'm so proud of.
Yeah,
like,
Like 4 times now?
I'm trying to get back on the gram. So on Facebook, Mr. Michael Burns, and then I got the podcast Freedom Lifestyle Experience, which is just me sharing this message that like I've really the last couple of years been developing, which is what we talked about today. So hopefully I'll be back on the gram soon.
I'm on Instagram and Facebook. It's the same thing, Little Miss Kia. So
fantastic. Thank you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
This podcast was brought to you by True Agency Real Estate. If you want to check us out, our website is www.utahtrueagency.com, and we are also on all of the socials.